Good morning and welcome to the Foggy Dew. This is Colin. Well, gang, what a week. I've really been watching media like a hawk. It's just so interesting to me to watch the response of people when it comes out in the media. I've said it before, the response is always the best part. You have to watch that. And I've got a real gem for you here, but I want to preface this whole conversation just by saying that I don't ever remember laughing at politics like in the past. Like maybe like at 2015, something like that. Like all of a sudden politics became really, really funny. Because pre 2015, 2016, politics wasn't funny at all. And I guess you can look at the timing of that 2015, 2016 and kind of that coincides with the rise of Donald Trump. And if you look at it that way, Donald Trump broke every mode of politics. He really shattered it. And it's interesting if you watch Trump, just his body language, everything about him. Trump is a natural comedian. I mentioned his body language, his mannerisms, his pace of delivery. They're completely comedic. The timing of comedy that flows out of Donald Trump is just, it's perfect. And some of the one-liners that Donald Trump comes up with are objectively hilarious. And regardless of whether or not you think it's funny, I mean, I think it's funny. I know not everybody does. But when Trump burst on the scene and he was just like this larger-than-life comedy show, there was always a response. That rise of Trump, the rise of comedic Trump that sucks all the oxygen out of the room, caused a rise in opposition response. And if you watch what goes on in the media, the folks with Trump derangement syndrome in both parties, really, they've escalated their language to try to keep up. So they say, okay, well, Trump is just this kind of larger than life figure, so I need to act larger than life to kind of keep pace with this guy. And newsflash to all these people trying to keep up with Trump, you can't. They curse, they bloviate, incendiary rhetoric. Nobody can keep pace with Trump, man. Trump is a one-liner factory. So what happens when these people try to keep pace with this guy, it comes off as totally fake, inauthentic, contrived. And I get the opposite effect is what they get. They want to be bombastic, they want to be funny, all the things, and they come off looking like just absolute inauthentic fools. The opposite effect is intended. So because of that dynamic, watching the response became my main goal the last 10 years. I don't need any poll to tell me what's going on in the electorate. I don't need any Harvard-Harris poll to tell me who's winning an argument or a certain political situation. You can just watch what's said. If you watch what's said on both sides, you can judge the temperature pretty well. And what I can tell you is that the Democrat Party is having a really bad week. Really bad week, because here's the ranking Democrat. The ranking Democrat right now in American politics is Hakeem Jeffries. This man comes out with this gem of a quote on Wednesday. I hope you saw it because the guy had a psychotic break on live TV, which was just glorious. This guy has a total meltdown on live stream TV. Here's Hakeem Jeffries, the ranking Democrat, quote, "The ghosts of the Confederacy have afflicted the U.S. Supreme Court majorities and is invading and haunting the nation right now." End quote. He kept his harangue going. So here's Hakeem Jeffries. He continued on this like rant. Hakeem Jeffries, quote, "We know this is an unprecedented assault on Black political representation, the likes of which we have not seen since the Jim Crow era," end quote. Bro, get a grip. Ghosts of the Confederacy? Ghosts of the Confederacy is just, that is an all-timer from the ranking Democrat. Jim Crow era. He's invoking Jim Crow. Ghosts of the Confederacy. I hope somebody got him a paper bag to blow into when he finished that. Just screed. I hear blowing into a paper bag helps when you're hyperventilating. Hopefully they had a doctor on to get him a cold compress. And I guess, look, based on that, and screed is the best way to look, based on that insane screed that guy just puked up at the lectern, what I would tell you is I don't need a poll to tell me, but the Democrats aren't doing well. And why are they not doing well? Because it seems to me, is some ding dong in Missouri, I hope racism is on life support in America, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's why Hakeem Jeffries is so mad and why he's hyperventilating in front of a TV camera. This act by people like Hakeem Jeffries is so tiresome. Ghosts of the Confederacy, harking back to Jim Crow. Man, that's divisive and silly. It's 2026 already. These people that talk about this stuff in this manner are totally race obsessed. They're race obsessed. They're gender obsessed. And it's interesting to me, like in just watching this whole phenomenon of how these people operate, it's like all of these people in unison descended into some sort of conspiracy theory land. Everything to these people is a boogeyman. And if you think everything's a boogeyman and you live in a world of conspiracy theories, you need certain moorings. You need touch points of reality. The touch points of reality of these people that act in this manner, they need January 6th to be real. Without that, their narrative falls apart. They need they need 2020 to be legit. They have to have the legitimacy of Joe Biden being elected in 2020. They need the science to be absolute. They need to know that if you wear a mask, nothing can affect you. They need to live in a world, their touch point must be that black and brown people, women, LGBTQ, traditional minorities are perpetual minorities. They need those constructs. And constructs is the best way to think of it, because that's exactly what that is. If there was any daylight on 2020, January 6th, this discrimination, but any daylight goes on those, any logical point that refutes it, their whole house of cards falls. It's like pulling a thread in a blanket if the whole thing just falls apart. So they constructed these realities around themselves in anything that is contrary to that house of cards must be destroyed. Because to be completely transparent in this whole process, if you're talking about the ghosts of the Confederacy, you're hearkening back to the Jim Crow era, these folks, and this goes for both parties, you're not enabling minorities by talking like this. You're not enabling minorities. What you're doing is you're weaponizing people's brains. You're dividing people. That's real segregation. It's mental segregation. When everybody in the United States is defined as an American citizen, that fake veneer of color, sex, religion, all of it is stripped away. Fake veneer. It's exposed. And the thing that I always go back to, we have a common history here. There are lots of minorities buried at Arlington. Lots of minorities buried in Arlington. There's lots of white boys. There's lots of white women. There's a lot of Christians. There's a lot of Jews, black folks. None of that matters. You know why? Because they're all Americans. They're all heroes. We have a colorblind constitution, regardless of what these race hustlers want to say. Use that beautiful document. Use our history. Make the experiment better. We will never move forward as a society if these people don't understand that. I saw this quote and I laughed out loud. Ghosts of the Confederacy. Man, that is so lame. So lame. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a guy named Thomas Sowell, but Thomas Sowell is one of my favorites. He's a totally brilliant man. And if you don't know who Thomas Sowell was, he was an economist, he was a historian and a social theorist. He was totally popular in conservative thought circles. He wrote 45 books. Sowell had a master's degree from Columbia. He worked at Cornell, UCLA, Stanford, Harvard, Hoover Institute. The guy's like 95 years old now. Still brilliant. The interesting thing about him is he was born in Harlem. Sowell's black. People like Sowell Clarence Thomas, Winsome Earl Sears. People like this are an absolute living refute of Jeffrey's nonsense. Thomas Sowell had a bunch of great quotes, and I'm going to go ahead and read one of them because I think it's so interesting. Here's Thomas Sowell, quote, "The sad and tragic fact is that the civil rights movement, despite its honorable and courageous past, has over the years degenerated into a demagogic hustle, promoting the mindless racism they once fought against." End quote. Promoting the mindless racism they once fought against. Degenerated into a demagogic hustle. That's exactly right, man. You can pull about 100 quotes from Thomas Sowell that are exactly like that. And each one of them is brilliant as the next. What I would tell you is people like Thomas Sowell are leaders, not people like Hakeem Jeffries. He's no leader. What he is, he's an empty suit. He's an empty suit that runs to get in front of a television camera and spews divisive rhetoric, lame rhetoric. And I guess going back to the premise of my whole point, he's trying to out-Trump Trump. And instead of keeping up with Trump and keeping pace, what he does, he ends up looking like a small-minded fool. But this is exactly why we here at the Foggy Dew will always watch the response. But trust me, I'm going to keep watching all this rhetoric because it's totally unhinged and I love it. So, switching gears, a total historical footnote in U.S. history is a thing called the Quasi-War. You probably never heard of that. And to be fair, it's totally obscure. And it really wasn't even a war, hence the name Quasi-War. The Quasi-War was a war that the U.S. was engaged in that wasn't even a declared war. And you might be asking yourself, what in the world is the Quasi-War? I've never even heard of it. Well, the predicate for the war was relatively simple. So what happened here is that the French government had helped the Revolutionary Congress. They supplied the American Revolution money, arms. And what the French really wanted to do here is the French really wanted to hurt their archenemy, the British. So obviously the French are going to supply rebels, which is exactly what occurred. So the Revolutionary Congress owed a debt to France. So revolution wraps up, the new US government forms, it owes the French. Well, by 1793, there's a new US Congress. The Revolutionary Congress is gone. And that Congress in 1793 unilaterally stopped paying the French. So this fledgling government that owed a debt to a foreign power decided that they were done with it. Well, as you can probably imagine, France didn't like that whole lot. So what happened is that when the new Congress cut off the French from payment, French vessels, meaning merchant vessels, warships, started seizing any U.S. vessel that they saw in the open water. So the French were literally just commandeering U.S. vessels just to say, okay, you're not going to pay us, we're going to take what we want. Well, the problem with that is as these U.S. vessels are being seized by the French, the brand new U.S. government is in absolutely no position to respond to these attacks. Well, over that time period, 317 U.S. vessels were interdicted by the French. They were captured by the French. Well, after a 5-year period in 1798, the new U.S. government was on much better footing. It was able to respond to these threats. So in 1798, the United States government reauthorized the U.S. Navy. So this whole thing, the Quasi-War, kicked off in 1798. For a 2-year period, the reconstituted U.S. Navy fought French ships when they encountered each other. So you've got 1798, 99. Well, by 1800, France itself was becoming an empire under Napoleon. Well, Napoleon had dreams of taking over Europe. Napoleon, the ascendant Emperor Napoleon, and the nation of France, they really didn't want open conflict on the seas with America. They didn't want to be fighting America in any way, shape, or form, so they decided to broker a peace. So that's what the Quasi-War was. It really wasn't a war. It was just kind of French kind of taking what they thought they were owed. The U.S. Navy started attacking them back for no reason. Well, there were a lot of interesting threads that came out of the quasi war, and there are threads that still define US politics to this day. And I think the most important part of that, the quasi war was not a war. It was, but it wasn't. So there was no formal declaration of war. You just had US Navy boats attacking French vessels on sight. Can you imagine that situation occurring today? If you just had some kind of like US aircraft carrier that just on its own decided to start attacking French vessels or attacking another hostile power's vessels. Obviously, if you put that in the context of today, you would say, man, that is a really dangerous situation. That's like the Cold War. You were always worried about a US pilot engaging a Russian pilot shooting down a MiG. You could spark a broader conflict. It's just a dangerous situation. And you never know when that could happen. One single attack could spark some huge war. So it's not just the fact that it's a single attack, it's the fact that it's unauthorized. There was no written thing in the quasi-war that says, hey, go out and attack French vessels. So that scenario in the quasi-war of US vessels indiscriminately attacking a foreign power, that scenario led to the legal right of Congress to declare war on a foreign power. Only Congress can authorize military actions. And to be fair, if you look at the legal part of this, military action that's taken on behalf of the United States needs a declaration of war. And if you look, and that's why I said now you look at it today, that's relatively elastic. It's elastic today, but it's important to understand the predicate behind it. War was much slower 200 years ago. I mean, today you have drone attacks that can happen in 5 seconds and you have to respond. I mean, it moves lightning fast now. So not only was war slower 200 years ago, people were much different. The president at the time was John Adams. So John Adams was the president when all this is occurring. So he had actually tried to send envoys to entreat with France when the quasi-war was happening. So here's John Adams, he's the president. He sends 3 envoys to France. He wants to broker a deal while the quasi-war is going to stop the hostilities. Well, unfortunately for everybody, the 3 envoys made absolutely zero progress with the French government. They made absolutely no headway in resolving the quasi-war. So here, again, think of this situation. You've got a president of the United States. He sends his own people to try to broker a peace. Didn't happen. Well, so what happened in that situation was that there was an individual citizen, a man who thought he could broker a better treaty than the administration. He thought he was smarter than John Adams and the 3 envoys. Well, who was this guy? So an independent citizen, a man named Dr. George Logan, enters this entire situation when these truce talks are failing with the French government. I said it just a minute ago. Logan was a private U.S. citizen. Not only was a private U.S. citizen, this guy was just a simple state legislature out of the state of Pennsylvania. He was a state legislator, and he was also a pacifist. And the interesting thing about Logan is that Logan also happened to be a Democratic Republican. Now, that might not mean much to you today, but it's important because John Adams was a Federalist. So Logan was from the opposition party to the duly elected president. Well, here's Logan. So he, on his own decides to go over to France and starts talking with the French government. So here's Logan, who had absolutely no business doing this. He's over there talking with the French government, suggesting ways to end the conflict. He's conveying to the French government the U.S. public's mood regarding this situation. Well, the French government wasn't stupid. They realized that they could use Logan politically. So what they did is they said, okay, Logan, we're going to go ahead and follow your lead here. What they did is they lifted embargoes. The French government did. They lifted embargoes on the U.S., and the French de-escalated tensions based on what Logan did. Now, on its face, that appears to be a good thing. You say, okay, well, great. The embargo's lifted. We're de-escalating this. Well, the problem with it is that's not Logan's place. The Federalist Party had a trifecta at this point. The Federalists controlled the House, the Senate, and the executive with John Adams. So what that means is that this Logan character was not privy He was not aware of the objectives of the administration. That's not his place. So what Logan was doing, he was operating as a rogue agent. And the problem with that is that his behavior could then theoretically create a problem for the legally elected government. Logan could be submarining objectives that he has no idea exist. And that's really the problem here. Nobody elected Logan. That's the whole issue with our government. Nobody elected Logan. It's like Mark Elias. I was thinking about when I was writing this thing. It's kind of like Mark Elias. So when Donald Trump gets sworn into office in 2025, Mark Elias, who nobody elected, filed 1,000 lawsuits to stop Donald Trump. I don't remember anybody electing Mark Elias to slow down the administration. The American people voted Donald Trump in office for an agenda. He talks about his agenda on the campaign trail. So he was duly elected as the president of the United States. Nobody elected Mark Elias to file 1,000 lawsuits. But here he is doing it. It's the same thing. So if you look at it in the context of the quasi-war and what was occurring with this negotiation with the French, the people, the American people, elected Federalists. They elected the Federalist Party with John Adams, not Logan. So there are multiple issues here with Logan's behavior. The end result of this whole deal and why I wanted to talk about it is because of this entire situation with Logan acting rogue in this way and circumventing a duly elected government. Congress passed what's called the Logan Act. The Logan Act banned private correspondence with foreign governments. Here's the text of the act. Quote, this is the Logan Act, quote, any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly, commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government or of any officer or agent thereof in relation to any disputes or controversies with the United States, or to defeat the measure of the United States shall be fined under this title and imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. Carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government. Intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government. This Logan Act, that's where the genesis of the Logan Act comes from. And you hear about it in the media all the time. The Logan Act is still law 226 years later. And in full transparency, there have only been a handful of people ever in that 226-year history that have ever been charged with violating this act. And the challenge with invoking the act is relatively simple, and that would be free speech. That's the legal argument against it. A private citizen has the ability to say what they want, even to a foreign power. But that's not absolute. It's not absolute at all. In general, the Logan Act is really for someone trying to resolve a dispute, which Logan was doing, or trying to entreat with a foreign power as an agent of the government. And I guess you might be sitting yourself going, why is this man talking about the Logan Act? Well, I'm talking about the Logan Act because I think it's important because I just saw Barack Obama went to Canada. So here's Barack Obama, the prior executive of the United States, going on a statesman's visit to meet with the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney. So you might not even know that. Obama, Mark Carney are having a meeting up in Canada. Well, you might be curious who they're meeting with. So here you have Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, meeting with the head of state, Mark Carney. They're meeting with Alex Soros and Alyssa Slotkin. Excuse me? Slotkin, you might remember, is the ex-CIA lady from the Seditious Six video. She's also a sitting U.S. senator from the state of Michigan. And I don't know if Alex Soros needs any introduction, but he's the spawn of Satan. Alex Soros' dad is George Soros, and George Soros and his ilk should be viewed as domestic terrorists. Alex Soros is married to Huma Abedin. Huma Abedin is Hillary Clinton's best buddy. These people, all of them, Slotkin, all of them, Slotkin, Soros, Obama, Carney, they are all WEF, World Economic Forum, globalist hacks. So these 4 people are meeting up in Canada. That is a motley crew of people. You might be curious what they're doing. They are having, quote, closed door meetings this week. What? What is going on there? And Barack Obama is so active in US politics still, it is unbelievable. He sticks his snout into everything that's going on. And the media always talk, Barack Obama really doesn't dig into the fray. He doesn't get involved. He's so classy. This guy comments and chimes in on absolutely everything. He's involved in every single situation. He was just in Texas the other day, stumping with I think it's Tarico or Talicro or whatever, that Democrat guy that's running for Senate in Texas. Obama's down stumping in Texas. He's totally active in US politics. He's meeting with Democrat candidates. He's meeting with foreign heads of state. He's posting online. He's providing instruction. He's criticizing the current administration. He's going around the world. He did this in England too. Here he is going up and meeting with foreign heads of state and Mark Carney, people that share the same worldview. And again, I'm reading this thing, and here's Barack Obama meeting World Economic Forum clown globalist Carney behind closed doors. That is a spectacle. Barack Obama, to be completely clear, is not a private citizen. This isn't Logan. Slotkin is not a private citizen. Barack Obama was the former executive of the United States of America. He's not some Tom, Dick, and Harry state senator from Pennsylvania. He's the prior executive. He's flying a private plane up to meet with a foreign dignitary. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Barack Obama is totally out of bounds here. And if you think about what Barack Obama is doing in the context of the Logan Act, is this a Logan Act violation? Because it sure looks like it to me. I think at a bare minimum, you could say this is definitely the act of a man who doesn't fear reprisal. I truly believe that Barack Obama, in his brain, believes that he is the ideological vessel. He represents the will of the American people, when it's really just him. And his vision, him being the vessel of liberalism, his vision, his being a vessel, gives him a pass from law. But the situation here is totally similar to Logan. The American people elected Donald Trump. They elected the government that we have. That's the will of the people. Nobody elected Obama this time around. Nobody elected Slotkin, and certainly nobody elected Alex Soros. Nobody elected any of those people to go meet with a foreign head of state. That's an insurrection against the law, clearly. Because what Obama is doing, he's violating the mandate for lawful governance. The fact that his mere presence that he's going up and doing, go watch the videos. It's 2 foreign heads of state meeting. His presence there is not acceptable because Mark Carney is another Trump derangement syndrome person. Carney hates Donald Trump. Carney cannot stand Donald Trump. So what happens by Obama's presence there, by his mere presence, what Barack Obama is doing is creating a political back channel. He's creating a back conduit for Carney. So Carney can talk to the good cop. Donald Trump's the bad cop. Obama's the good cop. All of these people are the same ilk. They're all WEF globalist clowns. World Economic Forum, Soros, New Order puppets. These are the rules-based order people. They're all globalists, man. They're all globalists, and they're talking behind closed doors. And to me, it's almost like a James Comey thing, like wearing his Kamala Harris gear. Barack Obama is rubbing my nose in it. He's saying, I'm above the law. I'll do whatever I want. I'll go have closed-door meeting with foreign heads of state. And this, Virginia Democrats learned this just the other day. Law isn't optional. You don't just get to skirt the law because you feel like it, because you think your cause is just. Barack Obama and the globalist cabal lost in 2024 here. They ran a Muppet named Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris was rejected by the American people. Team Globalist lost. And Barack Obama was elected twice by the American people, but he is a private citizen now. Barack Obama does not get to choose what laws to follow or not follow. That's a real problem. And what he's doing, he's really running a shadow government. That's the easiest way to think about this entire. He is running a shadow government right now. It's a parallel government that cannot be voted out. Again, nobody elected him. This is how the World Economic Forum, this is how the globalists do it. It's a continuity of governance. But even if I elect Donald Trump or some other populist, there's always going to be this this thin framework of globalism that exists in our countries. We can never get rid of it. And God forbid these people ever get power again, because they'll use it completely. But Barack Obama acting this way, I truly think that he is utterly convinced that he is the anointed one. He's the vessel, that his cause is just, that his view is unassailable. His cause is just, so law is pliable, man. And I think in a lot of ways, if I back away from this situation and my personal revulsion of what this guy did up in Canada, I think in a lot of ways, if you look back to the initiation of what Barack Obama did with a lot of the race-based politics that we saw coming out of his administration in 2008, he kind of started that snowball. I think in a lot of ways, Barack Obama is leading us to a civil war. His speech, his behavior, his actions are not compatible. They do not comply with bipartisanship. What he is doing by talking about democracy all the time and actively undermining the republic, he is launching some type of ideological assault against the republic. He wants globalism, not federalism. And I think that's the real battle. These people have embedded themselves so deeply into our public consciousness, we have to root them out. Because really, if you look at what happened in 2024 with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and I think that that's the context a lot of people lose because they think about Donald Trump. Donald Trump just sucks the oxygen out. Really, what Donald Trump was a vessel for right-wing populism, for nationalism. And that's the context that you should look at 2024 and really our politics moving forward. It's nationalism versus globalism. Nationalism is John Thune. Nationalism is Mitch McConnell, is Murkowski, Tom Tillis. Those are globalists. Those are the globalists. Those are the globalists on the Republican side. Ted Cruz is a globalist. And then you've got the whole cadre of Democrats. That's the fight here. Donald Trump was a populist nationalist. Rubio, populist nationalist. Hegseth, populist nationalist. That's the dichotomy here. That's the break. But if I go back and look at, again, the initiation of Barack Obama into the body politic, he infected America with this idea of globalism. He infected the body. And what he did, after he infected the body, what he did is he then accused anyone who opposed him as an insurrectionist. He said, if you oppose me, you're a moral blight to the arc of history. You're a threat to democracy. And I guess what I look at as far as Obama goes, shadow presidency, shadow government, that's about right. It's a parallel administration. It's like a globalist side government. And I guess people talk about deep state. That is the definition of the deep state. It's embedded. You can't get rid of it. And I've talked about it on the show, but I truly believe that Donald Trump was not supposed to win in 2026. It was supposed to be Hillary Clinton. It was her turn. It was supposed to be 8 years of Hillary to just completely erode the foundation of the republic. And then after Hillary was done, they'd get another globalist puppet after her. But the globalist plan failed when Donald Trump won. Trump scrambled the matrix. He scrambled the matrix, but guess what? The globalists didn't get the memo. They never stopped. The globalists are not stopping. Obama, Carney, Soros, Slotkin. It's just a murderer's row of globalists. And I really wonder what they're discussing. We'll never know. And again, I'll hold my breath on the Logan Act. But if you're asking me, I think Barack Obama's putting himself in a really bad spot here. He's got this Florida grand conspiracy deal that's not going anywhere. That grand conspiracy, regardless of what comes out of it, is going to expose Obama and Russiagate. Anyway, I guess we're going to see where this all goes. But I saw Obama up in Canada. It just blew my mind. So switching gears, I had something that just kind of made me laugh the other day. There are so many interesting World War II stories. And I guess if you look at it one way, worldwide conflicts will typically have that effect where you have all these interesting stories. But I was thinking about a good one about a guy named Hiro Onoda. Well, Onoda was a Japanese citizen. He was born in 1922. Well, Onoda was inducted into the Japanese army. He was trained in guerrilla warfare. Well, by 1944, he was a war veteran. So this man was sent as a Japanese guerrilla fighter. He was sent to the Philippines, which Japan controlled at the time. So as the Allies advanced on the Philippines, Onoda was given instructions. His instructions were pretty simple as a guerrilla fighter. He was ordered to destroy the main airstrip and harbor to slow down the Allied advance. His job on the Philippine Islands was to destroy any boat or plane, an Allied boat or plane, that attempted to land on the island. One of his main orders is that he was not to surrender and he was not to take his own life. Well, I think as everybody knows, the Allies absolutely overwhelmed the Japanese resistance on the Philippine Islands. So as the Americans are coming, Onoda and 3 other men fled into the mountains. So these guys fled into the mountains and they continued their guerrilla actions, their missions up in these mountains. Well, by 1945, they had survived alone in the mountains by eating bananas and living off the land. And it was about at that time in 1945 that these 4 men started seeing leaflets. The leaflets that they got were dropped from Allied planes. The leaflets indicated that the war was over, that Japan had surrendered, that World War II had ended. Well, these 4 men looked at the leaflets and they determined that the leaflets were fake. They're like, you know what? They're looking at the authenticity of this. This is all propaganda. Well, 4 years later in 1949, one of the men had had enough. He said, "This is crazy. I think we're done." So this guy surrendered to local Philippine forces. Now, the remaining 3 guys looked at that as like the ultimate betrayal, that they had a defector in their midst. So these 3 guys became even more cautious, more detached from reality. And the more information that they were presented with after this initial defect, the more information that they saw, the more they discarded it. So these guys continued living up in the mountains for years. By 1954, one of the remaining 3 had died. This guy was shot in a firefight with local fishermen. So now it's down to 2 men. 2 men. 1972, the second to last died. That second to last guy was shot by local police. So here you have Onoda. He's the last. Onoda lived alone in the mountains, continuing his guerrilla fighting until 1974. This guy finally came across, Onoda was finally came across by who was like this Japanese traveler. And this Japanese traveler was like going across the earth. He was looking in a way for Onoda. He said he was looking for like the Yeti. He was looking for the soldier named Onoda. Well, Onoda had been declared dead by the Japanese government at this point, but there were like these rumors. There were rumors that persisted in Japan that Onoda was alive. So this guy was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a Yeti. I'm looking for Onoda." And Onoda's like, "What? You're looking for me? Like, why?" So these 2 men keep talking, but Onoda's suspicious of what this guy's saying. And he says, "If what you're saying is true, then I'll go ahead and resign, but I need to be relieved by my commander." That's how fanatically dedicated this man was. So this traveler, the Japanese traveler, is like, okay, goes back to Japan. He returns to Japan and he tells the military, he goes, "I found Onoda. He's alive." He'll submit, but he wants to like be relieved of his duty. So Japanese military advisors, they found this guy's superior officer. So they find, and this guy's been retired from the military for like 25 years. So the Japanese military found his superior officer and they fly this guy to the Philippines. On March 9th, 1974, Onoda was relieved of duty. When he was relieved of duty, Onoda had a sword. He had 500 rounds of ammunition. He had a Type 99 Arisaka rifle, hand grenades, a dagger. Onoda had held out for 28 days, 28 years, 6 months, and 8 days. The total amount of days he had, 10,416 total days after Japan surrendered in World War II. 10,416 total days fighting a war in his own head. Onoda, after he was relieved of duty, was sent back to Japan. And again, interesting story, but you might be sitting there going, why is this guy talking about this Japanese holdout named Onoda? And I get, why am I talking about a Japanese fighter who kept fighting long after the war was over? And my answer to you is Mike Pence. Mike Pence, in a lot of ways, is like the Japanese Onoda. Mike Pence is fighting a battle that's over, man. He just doesn't seem to realize it. So somebody decided it would be a good idea to interview Mike Pence. And here's Mike Pence in this interview, and I laughed out loud reading this. Here's Mike Pence, a massive scumbag. Quote, "I think Republicans face a new time of choosing. Whether we're going to stay on the path of the traditional conservative principles that have always defined our party for the last half century, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism. We've always been a party committed to low taxes, including low tariffs and free trade. Now, as we witness, the president imposed unilateral tariffs on friend and foe alike until the Supreme Court stepped in and used the Constitution to turn him back." This goes on and on and on. Mike Pence is Onoda. He is a modern day Onoda. He is totally oblivious to the situation on the ground. You could drop a truckload of pamphlets on this guy's head telling him this situation and he wouldn't understand it. I guess those pamphlets might kill that fly that landed on his head in a debate. This guy's just such a pompous ass. Mike Pence is like a cardboard cutout of a human being. He's totally fake. He's totally gross. And again, totally oblivious. And how is this guy even being interviewed as a political pundit at this point? Anybody who cares about what Mike Pence thinks is so deep in the matrix, they don't even know which way is up. You've got to be buried so deep in the matrix to care about what Mike Pence thinks. Mike Pence's latest gambit, his latest foray into U.S. politics, was this deal that he just tried to pull off in Indiana. Mike Pence was the Pied Piper of the turncoats in the Indiana state legislature. He was the moral ringleader of that crew that decided not to gerrymander the maps in Indiana. Mike Pence directed these people to defy Trump. He wanted to defy the American voter, to defy the red base on redistricting. Because it wasn't these state senators. They were just Mike Pence's proxy. Mike Pence dominates Indiana politics on the air quotes conservative. He is a rhino of the highest order. Mike Pence was the puppeteer of those Indiana state senators. I talked about some of these people in the prior segment. Pence, Thune, Murkowski, Tillis, Romney, Bush, Cruz, McConnell. They're the globalists. They're the rhinos. Their time is done. They're old establishment hacks. They're principled losers. And the funny thing to me about it, when you look at the scope of U.S. politics, these people, the Pences, the Thunes, all these guys, these people are the RNC's darlings. The Republican National, they love these people. These people people think that these people are so great. You know who doesn't? The base. The base absolutely loathes these people. Mike Pence especially. And here he is, quote, "Republicans should soul search," end quote. Pence, you should go away. I'm not soul searching anything. The only thing I can tell you, Mike Pence, is that nobody can stand you. Pence submarined Trump in term 1. He wasn't political opposition wearing a Democrat jersey. He was political opposition sitting in the second highest seat in the country. He was the opposition who was stationed in the White House. He was the establishment lackey. And if people in the RNC or people in Republican circles, meaning the party itself, if they think people like Pence are the future, they're on drugs, and good drugs. And to me, that's always nice to see good drugs out in the wild. But if you're looking at it objectively, you've had 20, 30 years of empty speeches by the Rhino class. Pence and his ilk have delivered absolutely nothing to the American people in the base. Nothing. They have dropped 20, 30 years of fake news on my head, and I'm tired of it. They spoke about limiting government. They spoke about accountability. They did nothing. People like Mike Pence offshored our factories. They ballooned our debt. People like Mike Pence, Romney, they gave you socialized medicine. People like Pence offshored our industrial capacity to places like China. They offshored it to our enemies. They gave you the Middle East war. They give you trillions in burnt money. We have dead young Americans, our best servicemen and women. They allowed human smuggling at the border. Fentanyl flooded all our cities. If Mike Pence was in charge, we would get tens of millions of more illegals. And I guess to me, if those are traditional conservative principles, you can stuff them. And it's not a siren song of populism. It's not a siren song of populism. It's an awake right that sees the issues that are occurring in our own day-to-day lives. And what it is we're not going to tolerate it anymore. Lens of COVID. COVID gave us fighters. People that spoke out, that fought back against the establishment. The base, I'm speaking for the base here. The base wants fighters. They want fighters, not empty suits and traitors like Mike Pence. He is a traitor. Mike Judas Pence and his 30 pieces of silver. The arrogance of this guy to come out and talk like he's important. He thinks he's relevant. He's totally delusional. And again, it's no different than people like Thune, Johnson, Murkowski. Everybody hates these people. And I'll bet in 10 years they're Democrats. They just haven't put on the different jersey yet. Mike Pence is a guy that wants the rules-based order back. He likes the good old days, and sorry, Judas, you're not going to get him. What I can tell you, if you look at the scope of history, a person like Mike Judas Pence is going to be a political footnote. He's a political hack who kept fighting after the war was over, just like Onoda. Just like Onoda, except Mike Pence isn't noble at all. And I guess put a cork in it, Mike Pence. The guy just infuriates me. I can't even believe it. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop ranting for the day, guys. If you like the show, please go ahead and tell a friend about it. If you would, please follow us on Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram at Foggy Dew Daily. If you have questions for the show, please go ahead and email us at foggydew95@gmail.com. But in the meantime, I'd ask you to say a prayer, ask questions, and stay vigilant. This is the Foggy Dew, signing off.